take on it was that we would make it a mechanical walking robot, a no coding robot, wherein first you understand the fundamentals, the basics.
What was that key moment that like you or Neeraj or both of you had?
It's been a journey. There wasn't, I wouldn't, bring it down to a single moment. But yes, this seed kind of was planted in our heads way back when we were working together in IIT Gandhinagar. This is not what it looked like when it was ideated for the first time. This is the version we have now. It's probably like a 10.0.
It's the same owl-like mechanical. Yeah.
Make and Break की maker class is essentially an initiative to take the vision that we created Make and Break with, take that vision forward in the form of guided toy making workshops. As a startup, the focus that we feel that where our focus should lie is in these behavioral insights. Because once you get these right, you will automatically grow.
The New Shane podcast is here once again, bringing you another thrilling episode where we bring inspiring people with amazing stories about their startups. I'm Akshat, and today's story is all about innovation, change, and learning. In today's episode, we have with us Mansi Gupta, the co founder of Make and Break. She and her co founder Neeraj only had one mission, which was to make learning fun. They bring to you STEM based educational toys and games different for all age groups, which will make anyone feel bad for growing up too fast. So give it up for from your house, office, metro, or wherever you are tuning in from for Mansi and Make and Break. So, why don't we just start with the basic question, right? Like, how did you guys come across Make and Break? Like, what was that key moment that like you or Neeraj or both of you had maybe initially that was like, okay, maybe we should do this startup, like around toys and name it Make and Break.
Yeah. So, I mean, the ideation of the startup to the naming of the startup, that it's been a journey. There wasn't, I wouldn't, kind of bring it down to a single moment. But yes, this seed kind of was planted in our heads way back when we were working together in IIT Gandhinagar. So we used to have a lot of, like, we used to practically discuss everything under the sun. And one day, because we were at IIT Gandhinagar, we used to work with a lot of students, teachers, and sometimes even parents, right? And we used to do a lot of hands-on experiential activities with them. So one day we just sat under the, on the chai ka tapri, and we were discussing, okay, what if these toys could reach to not just the kids who are coming here, or not just the teachers who are coming here and interacting with us, but you know to every kid in the nation. So what it was a what if question, and so that conversation pretty much ended there. So from a what if question, and then we digress here and there, but that what if question stayed with us, and it kept coming back to us conversation after conversation. And so we kind of moved towards saying कि, maybe we should do something about this. So it was a slow journey. It wasn't something that happened in a snap and say, okay, fine, let's do this today, and we're doing it. So it wasn't that kind of a decision. It took some time, and then COVID happened. But even all along COVID, also we kept having that thing saying that maybe we could do something about this. What if this? What if that? We were looking at things from a different perspective. We started doing that. Of course, I can only see that in hindsight. Maybe while we were doing it, we didn't actually realize it. But today, when we look back at it, and we see the dots connecting, we see how during COVID we used to have these discussions saying कि, you know parents and kids are kind of boxed in their houses, right? But still, I mean, they are being forced to share the same physical space, and yet there is distance between them, right? So that is something that kind of poked us much before that, when we were already working on hands-on and experiential education. uh, we repeatedly kept seeing this gap between what's taught in our classrooms and then what's really required in real life. So that gap was glaring, and it kind of pinched us even more when there's this exam called PISA. It's conducted by OECD, and India stood 72nd out of 73 participating nations. So it was an even tighter pinch that what is really happening in our country. Like, it's not like we're idiots. Our students are not idiots, but they don't have an application oriented mindset, which is what was required to ace that particular examination. So these dots kind of connected for us. First, the fact that there's this gap between classrooms and real life. Second, the fact that even when you're graduating from college, especially in a STEM field, you're not really getting the job that you want, and not because there are not enough jobs, but because you don't have the skill for that job. And then the fact that this parents and kids thing, wherein you share the same physical space, but then you're not actually spending any time, you don't even have an excuse to talk to each other because you're too engrossed in your own screens. So these dots kind of connected and helped us ideate what make and break could become. It wasn't make and break formalized just yet, but yes, we had started thinking about how we can solve these problems through one particular thing. We were very clear that we wanted to work with kids. And when it comes to kids, then play is the only language that they understand. So that's how, from conversations to what if situations to identifying problems to then understanding ki, okay, uh, maybe we can just, create toys that kids enjoy and parents would find it worth to invest in. And that's how Make and Break was born in some sense.
So obviously, like you guys didn't want them to, like spend more times because there are startups who have like kind of like followed the same approach. They want to educate more around, like more children, the next generation, more around STEM, and the straight away solution is okay. Let's develop an app for iPad. Let's develop a game, interactive game, or something like that. And yeah, but I guess you guys didn't want that, like you said. So what I'm trying to understand is like, what was the first toy that you were like? How did that come about? Between the chai tapri talks that you are like sharing about. So how did the idea of a toy came into the picture? You know what? Let's build this, for instance, and maybe we can build upon that, add more toys to that.
So, so what happened with toys? What happened is that we were very we were seeing how, like, of course we were looking at the toy market when we started thinking about these things. We were looking at what kind of toys we have played with, what kind of toys exist in the market today. So what so this one thing that we kind of figured out is that there's not a lot where like there's not a lot where kids have to make something on their own. Right. So in terms of DIY, so there were a lot of DIY crafts and arts wherein you just like you have a thing where you have to paint or you have to just like slime, etc. A lot of chemistry kits and by other things. A lot of TLM we call them in the industry, which is essentially teaching learning materials. Right. So that was there, which was very close to the curriculum. But when it came to proper toys, which can also impart an educational learning outcome without the kid getting to know about it. So the idea is to not spoon feed the kid, but to allow him or her to inherently absorb those concepts. But that's where you're kind of balancing the fun and the learning. So we were hell-bent on saying that no, our toys have to be fun first. The learning will happen automatically. So we were trying to figure out solutions for that. The first product was is something which is very close to the to Neeraj's heart. It is a robot. It's a walking robot. It is something that has been with him for quite a long time. I mean, he's had about 9 to 10 years of experience in the STEM industry by now, right? So he's been experimenting with a lot of different DIY materials with a lot of different kits. He's had his own journey of going from TLM to hands-on workshops to toys to about 300 plus creations that he's created on his own. So among those, the one that stuck with his heart is the robot that I'd shown you earlier. So I will show this. This is not what it looked like when it was ideated for the first time. This is the version we have now. It's probably like a 10.0 version.
It's
It's
the
available,
same
right?
owl-like mechanical. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. So, I mean, for lack of screen space, I am showing it in the air. But the idea is that it walks exactly like the way we walk. And that's how we kind of, made that connect. So we used to do this activity wherein we would tie a straight pole, like a wooden pole, to kids' knees, like to kids' legs. So right, they cannot move their knees then. They don't have that joint. And then we would ask them to walk. So kind of getting inspired from that activity and saying that how can we convert that into a toy which is fun because robots are typically very attractive for kids, but this is a no coding robot. So that's the specialty also in some sense, that whenever we're talking about robots, kids think ki, oh, it'll be something coded, but kind of the base is not code, the base is mechanics. So, like I was saying, right, that so this robot specifically, the general perception of a robot is that it'll have something electronic, digital, some code attached to it, etc. Right? But our take on it was that we would make it a mechanical walking robot, a no coding robot, wherein first you understand the fundamentals, the basics, like because at the end of the day you are coding a mechanism only, or you unless you understand the mechanism you can't really write the code, because coding is next, is the step two, but you need to understand step one for that first. So that was the idea behind creating this, and this was like I said, it was inspired by an activity that we used to do with the kids. And so yeah, that's how we got into this. And even so the way we package it is that we provide a space wherein we talk about how this is connected with real life. So while we say exactly walks like a human being, its walk is still a little wobbly. Now the reason for that wobble is because it lacks knees, so that knee joint is not there, and therefore there is that wobble. And how it kind of highlights, so that is a very small nuance which enables kids to get curious about their own biology, and then they kind of start relating things ki, okay, knees are something which we never took seriously, but it's something that you look at every day but not be able to apply things.
Hey, even the ankle movement plays a role in this, right? And yeah, I mean, it sounds pretty fun actually. Like it's. I was as you were, like talking, like all I could think about, was yeah, basic reminiscence about my childhood, right? So I guess we even talked about this before we like began recording. Like we had these mechanical, I don't know, mechanical sets apart from these doctor equipments and other things. We were quite involved with STEM because I guess during our generation we didn't have anything more than 2G or I don't know 3GP, some network terminology back then. And yeah, even in like I really appreciate like the way you just highlighted that part, especially ki you can't code before you can understand the mechanics itself. Right. Because I guess Tushar and me, so we shared the same school and we had this robotics club, right? And most of the kids couldn't, because it was paid, so we couldn't get in, right? Like, it looked really cool, right? Imagine a 12-year-old, it's like, oh, they're building robots, they're using solar panels to create something, right? And I guess is that also a factor, like affordability, that you're looking into your products?
Definitely. I mean, we have entered the Indian market, and an Indian consumer, while they may not always be price sensitive, which is typically what, it feels on the face, but they are definitely a value for money customer. So unless they feel like whatever they're putting their monies in is worth it, every parent will want that I am trying to invest in my kid's future, right? And so that is the opportunity we provide at a very pocket friendly price as well, so that it doesn't become a difficult decision and it cuts across economic categories.
So, Mansi, why don't you tell me about some of the partnerships that you guys have came across in the beginning, and how did they, like sometimes you need a push. You have a car, you need a push to move ahead. So, what were those partnerships like, and like who were they in the first place?
I think one of our so we had a common connect, somebody, and he introduced us to the Women and Child Development Department. Right. So now this is, of course, it got the result may not be the best in the world because there's a lot of process to get involved in business with the government. But we built a lot of connections through that, wherein we got to understand what kind of scale the government has for our toys and how we can kind of implement that. And that gave us a separate vision. I mean, one is doing D2C and selling to the urban kid of India, but the other extent to it is that reaching every kid in India, and that too in the masses, like in tier 3, in tier 4 for that matter of fact, right? So kind of having those conversations with the government officials and figuring out a path to do that, because from day one itself we have been I mean, if you talk about our vision, right, we've always made it a point that we want to get to every kid in the nation. So we are very keen on the fact that this should not be something which is restricted on the economic disparity, and that because every kid is a kid, every kid is curious, and every kid has the way they have the right to education, they must have the right to play as well. So that's been our mindset from day one. And when that door essentially opened up for us, that was a huge push saying that, okay, what we've visualized, what we've thought about, that can actually be realized. And we have people and partners in places of authority and position where they will help us do that. So that was definitely something.
And like you told me, your parents were in a position, or your close friends, no matter how proud they were, how supportive they were, they told you, you know what, we are not going to support you financially, you're on your own. And, like you guys were bootstrapped. So, did that also, help in a economic push? I know that's not your goal, as nobly as it sounds. But of course, at the end of the day, to run your Wi-Fi, to like build more, to innovate more, you need that kind of backing financially. So was that also an angle within that?
We did actually. So what happened through that is that we got connected through to a seed grant. So we got a grant from the government, which helped us sustain ourselves and innovate further, and then get back again to the government itself, saying that, okay, fine, we have these things which we can disseminate now.
Great. So, tell me about this government grant. Like, how did that come around? Like, and has that continued till, because since 2021, it's still 3 years of operations, and I really hope you have long-term plans for this, as everybody would have for their own startups. So, how is that going so far?
Yeah. So the grant came to us at a time when we were least expecting it. We were, I mean, it was something which, in a way, happened as a happy accident. And of course, I mean, when we got to know about it, we were all in, saying that, of course, when government is giving you money to innovate, why not? So it was very interesting that it was an interesting discovery for us in the first place, that okay, this also happens, because of course we were aware about the investors, we were aware about loans, etc., but this grant scenario was something new. And as soon as we got to know about it, of course we wanted to make the most of it. So we did what we could do best. We pulled in all resources. We said that okay, fine, let's do this. We had a hard deadline to meet, but we thankfully did it. And we also got selected. And the grant. So there's this levels of screenings which happen, and this and that. A lot of paperwork and screenings and levels, and saying that okay, you're approved. Okay, you're not approved. Okay, this is better. This is not better. So all of that happens, but end of the day, through all of it, we got it. So that was the end goal. And it sustained us at a time when we also had our savings. So that was interesting, because we were, in a way you can say that we got a little comfortable, because we had some amount of working capital which the government had provided us. And that allowed us to create a range of toys, because we while we were looking at the market, we were also seeing that a lot of different kinds of toys, so many ideas kept coming to us. So we were able to execute those ideas, because we had some amount of money. Had we not had that, probably it would have been a different scenario, or maybe a slower pace growth.
So, amongst all of this, there were also established brands, right? Back in 21, like Witty Brain Toys and Mum Tree, if I'm correct. So, what was the thought process? Like when you think of okay, there are giants in the market and we are pushing in, and especially like since you guys would have been accustomed being an MBA yourself, and like Neeraj having a decade-long experience, you guys would have known that okay, startup ecosystem is a bit tricky. It can get rough. How did you push through? Like, what was your whole? What was giving you that mental strength during those times?
Um, I think I think it's a two-part question. I'll answer the first one first, which is about the competitors, existing in the market. So, so in terms of that, we were very sure of our USP in some sense, that we were creating toys which could move, which had a certain amount of movement and motion to it. Now, DIY motorized toys is something only we do even till date. So that plus, so we have two kinds of toys. We have motorized and hand powered. Always there will be some amount of power transmission which is involved in our toys. So creating those mechanisms, creating a toy which uses power, be it motorized or mechanical, to run itself. That is something that takes time to design in the first place. So that is our core strength in terms of Neeraj as a founder. He's a hardcore product guy. You give him anything and he can design it. So that is his level of expertise, which is, I mean, if you think about it, why were people not doing there if there are enough giants existing in the market? They could have done what we are doing today, but I mean, after having spoken to even startups who've gone into the tank, into the Shark Tank, and them saying that even I tried this, but I couldn't do this, therefore I pivoted. So that gives us a different sense of saying that okay, fine, we're on the right track. And the fact that we're doing this and others are not doing this is because of a gap of either skills or of either a sense of faith that this will actually work. So somewhere there's this gap which we are definitely bridging, definitely interesting for the kids as well. So that is something that we have validated, kind of since day one, that kids are definitely interested in this. Their parents might say that, oh, it's too, no, my kid will not be able to do this or this or that. But the kids, if you look at only the kids, they are always 100% interested.
Obviously, I remember you even sharing a story about like this kid who didn't have access to such toys, and that also makes a huge difference in the minds. Your mindset like gives you the strength you're giving products to the underprivileged, the people who don't have access to that growing up. And it just makes me remember this one incident. I guess so. Me and Tushar, we were in the same school, right? And we had this club, a robotics club. It looked really cool. Now imagine us being 12 years old. We are looking at, there's a robot that can do calligraphy. There's a robot that uses a solar panel to walk around, right? And you want to get into a club like that, but it's paid, and your parents are like, you know what, we are paying enough for your other classes, and we don't want to pay for another, gimmick. So if you're giving an access to like that, that's obviously like something that anyone, like even me as a host, can be proud of. Just to listen to, there's a startup like that within our ecosystem who's achieving something like that. But tell me something, to be very honest, like as you were planning everything, right? Again, going back to my favorite kind of places where people have this conversations, the chai ki tapri. uh, did you ever think, what, we want to get into YC, we want to get into an accelerator, somehow raise an investment like that?
Yeah. So honestly, we didn't really think about accelerators. We were like, we knew YC, but for some reason we were in this in this thing of saying that no, we're gonna bootstrap. We have to do this on our own till a certain extent, and only when like we had set in our heads that okay, fine, this is where we want to reach. If we can do this bootstrapped, that means that fine, we're capable of doing business. That was one thing that I think we were proving to ourselves as well, that okay, are we even capable of doing business? Ideas come in dime a dozen, but the real thing is about execution. So can we really execute the idea that we have in our heads, is something that we were testing for our own selves as well. So we took that journey. We have not explored accelerators a lot. We are aware of YC. We know that it's a benchmark for a lot of people, but somehow I don't know why that never really came into the picture. But now that we've started, this year is when we've said that okay, fine, we've completed those 1,000 days, and we have sustained ourselves. We are not drowning in debt. We are not, we are in a decent place. So now let's start looking at, bringing in third party, essentially like a third person who can advise us, who can invest in us, who can mentor us. So yeah, so now that journey has begun.
Now that's really great to hear. Another thing that like I want to ask, based on the startup ecosystem itself, it's usually said and rather experienced that India is a really tough market for a product-based startup, right? So, as an MBA, as someone associated with IIT Gandhinagar, did you guys have that idea, or like, were you aware of that notion? And if yes, how did you push through that?
So we were like kind of aware and kind of not aware, but we were aware of one thing for sure, that the city that we were choosing to do business in is, India is a tough place to do business, especially a product business, and on all top of all those two things, Ahmedabad, or rather just Gujarat, is an even tougher place to survive when it comes to business, because you're surrounded by people with a business mindset, who are right there, who will not kind of cut you slack just because you're a newbie. So that allowed us to actually grow out of experience, out of being in that ecosystem. Yes, it is tough for a product based startup to survive in India, uh, partially because a lot of corners are cut. A lot of, especially in the toy industry, there was a lot of China before COVID. 90% was China. Now that COVID came and China was boycotted and all of that, and there's this Make in India thing going on. There's also NEP, which was introduced. So the new education policy gives weightage to hands-on and experiential stuff. It gives weightage to skill building. So a lot of these different dots connected for us to say that the timing is right. Even Modi ji promoting the toy sector, and also this thing happening. The fact that the economy is growing, rising disposable incomes allowed parents to create a budget for their kids' toys, which initially they would only invest in books, but now okay, fine, toys are also worth their wallet. So those are the things that kind of connected well for us, and therefore we decided to take the plunge.
I see. So, say, obviously, like what you said, India is doing really good in the toy sector. We recently, like, I just read somewhere that instead our exports in toys are more than our imports from China.
They have over the past couple of years after COVID, that has definitely happened. That our imports have decreased by so much that the exports have increased more than the imports. And what's also happening is that because of this entire export import scenario, there is a need for toy manufacturers. So we're not just trading, we're creating our toys, we are manufacturing our own toys, right? So that is another, again, yet another reason that allowed us to take that plunge.
Yeah, definitely. And I guess the most you can make out of it is the best strategy to move ahead, which I can see like one of our research executives came across. You can correct me if I'm pronouncing it. Maker Ki class event that you held in Gandhidham last
Yeah,
year.
yeah, yeah.
So you guys are even participating, like community engagement, which is I don't want to call it a marketing strategy, but yeah, more like an awareness thing. But I mean, mostly, yeah, that's pretty great. Like, can you tell me more about that? Like, what are these events? What are these engagement strategies that you're following up?
So, Make and Break Ki Maker Class is essentially an initiative to take the vision that we created Make and Break with, to take that vision forward in the form of guided toy making workshops. So, what's also happening is that when we when we're looking at DIY toys, so there is a certain amount of skepticism in parents. So we thought, why not engage with communities and actually directly. We love working with kids, so any chance we get to do that, we just do it. But more than that, in terms of a strategic action, it's about spreading awareness that kids can make their own toys, and more than that, sparking that curiosity in them, sparking their eyes light up when they make their own things, and when their parents can see that happening, then they realize, कि, okay, this is worth it. This is something that we can put our monies in. Our kids are enjoying it. They are learning from it. It's not a bad thing. It's a good thing. So that change in mindset is something that we're looking at mostly when we do these maker classes. The added bonus is we get to spend time with kids.
So I can see that you're reaching out to a certain segment of your audience through community engagement. You're holding out workshops where they can make their own things, right? But there's another part of a market where like your target audience, which are kids who are involved with pop culture, who are involved with now more and more superhero gimmicks coming out, anime things coming out, right? They have evolving needs. So how do you plan to solidify your position, within such market?
So if you look at a target audience, we're doing typically a 4 to 14 year, right? Because that's also, again, that is something that we found that for a toddler or for a preschooler, there is a lot of Montessori toys that exist in the market. It's for, and when it comes to grade 10 and above, kids typically get into academics because that is still the system of our society. We might not like it, but we will still follow it. So this 4 to 14 year age group, which is essentially where kids want to play but they don't have many options. It's either board games, video games, or now it's just become mobile phones. So that is where we wanted to provide options that allow them to spend time with themselves, to build their skills of creative problem solving, to look at things with a different perspective, to understand and to get exposure to so many different things which They might want to, but they just don't know how. So becoming that means, and also in terms of superhero, I mean, I have a younger brother. I also have I have kids ranging from 4 years to 14 years in my family who I interact with quite often with. So through them itself, a lot of times I get certain insights, be it from the kids or from their parents. So what happens is, superheroes etc is not something we are competing against, because that will always be a part of their entertainment area, because that is fantasy, that is something that kids typically aspire for, right? But that is not real, unfortunately, and kids also understand that. So they will not do that 24/7. They might like the merchandise, they might like watching a movie or two, or even get into those comics and stay in that universe. But when it comes to stepping out from that universe, they still need something which is real, which is something that they can engage with and can also build on. And same thing goes for parents as well. Parents are pretty much against them watching superhero movies. They're like, it's a waste of time. So somewhere where we can, find that common area where the kids are happy and the parents are also happy is where we're trying to, we find trying the sweet spot, and we keep working towards that.
I absolutely agree with you. Like even say for instance, kids watch Iron Man, right? And then they have or Batman, and they have that thing within. You know what? These guys are making their own things. Let's like create our own product as well. And this is where you step in with your product. So that I guess actually fits perfectly like a Lego brick. Uh, yeah. So, apart from your personal experiences, like you said, you had like part of your demography, your target demography within your household as well, friends and family, and again, community engagement. I'd like to put light on. Apart from that, like the what India lacks compared to other, like countries with their own startup ecosystems is statistics and growth reports, right? So how does make and break like compete on a global level, or rather my question would be like how do you access these kind of statistics that might help you grow further?
So the thing about statistics is, especially in India, that their numbers, they are useful numbers. I will not deny that. But more than that, and so much more than that, are the one thing that's useful is the insights. You don't get that in any statistics. Something I was hearing the other day, something very simple, that if you're putting a moisturizer, what boys do and how girls put on a moisturizer and how boys put on a moisturizer is poles apart. The girls will, put these dots on their faces and slowly massage it. The boys will be just, put it on the palm, the entire palm, and then you put it on your face. Of course, there'll be exceptions, but that is the general, behavior. Now, you will not get this in any report, in any statistic. These are insights, these are behavioral insights. And these are the things that really help you understand your target audience, and then, accordingly create your offering for them that kind of addresses their specific pain points. So yes, while statistics are important in terms of forecasting the growth of your startup, in terms of the business, and where the market is growing, how much is it growing, by what percentage is it growing, etc. But more than that, I mean, those I feel today that they are forecasting numbers more for investors or for a big picture. But as a startup, the focus that we feel that where our focus should lie is in these behavioral insights, because once you get these right, you will automatically grow.
So what's your primary source of getting into like these behavioral insights as you quote?
It's simply talking to our consumers. I mean, we say we're selling through our website. Now we get their data, and we end up calling them after, say a week after their purchase, saying that, oh, did you make the toy? We do a video call with them, saying, okay, how was the toy? How was the experience? Did you get stuck somewhere? We could even do a parent and a kid call, saying, okay, what's the parent's perspective? What's the kid's perspective? So we hold those focus groups. We, of course, there there are enough community engagements that we do. So we observe there. We're testing our products before they go on the market. So we're observing how the kid is actually creating that toy, where he or she is getting stuck, where he or she is saying that, okay, I'll try it a little more, and I can figure that part out, or no, I am not able to do this, or oh, this happened so easily. So those things come with observation, and we create scenarios where we can which allow us to observe our target customer.
How do you plan on expanding that in the near future? Like, what kind of like research are you looking at apart from the ones that you mentioned right now?
So we are looking at working with schools, because that's where you get a very large, pool of kids at one place, and so that's what we're looking at doing. We are looking at engaging with a lot of schools and doing this program with them, wherein we say that we'll do a year-long program with you, and say it's 12 months, right? So we'll do 11 things with you, and the 12th thing the kid will make on their own. So the idea is that 11 products or 11 toys they make, in terms of they make and break toys, right? So we assign them toys and they creating them, they're having fun and all of that. But the 12th toy is something that they will create on their own. So that is the challenge. It's a challenge for us, it's a challenge for them. We firmly believe that if they create, like if they make 11 make and break toys, they will have that capacity to make their own toy.
So tell me something like, say, someone who's like without any prior experience, like today college students, they want to drop out, they want to start their own product. So what will you suggest someone like that who's getting into a product market such as yours? Like, how do they start with this kind of research, like product response and behavior and like basic, even some level of statistics that might help them to evolve further within the ecosystem.
So I mean, if I had to suggest something, I don't feel I'm, old enough to be doing that. I still feel like I'm still learning a lot. But if I still had to do it, I would just say that, yes, I mean, look at the market, look at personal experiences first, but do not restrict yourself to personal experiences. Don't say, okay, I have faced this problem, so this is a general big problem. Then once you've had a problem, once you identified that, see how how much of a scale is it on, are other people also experiencing it? So the first thing to do is to just talk to people around you, talk to your family, talk to your friends, talk to your classmates, talk to random strangers on a metro, just a identify that problem, and b validate it. See if it's actually a problem or it's just something in your head. So I think that is the first thing that needs to happen. And after that, and once you feel the problem is validated, doors start opening on their own.
I see. So, as per you, a lot of your partnerships and collaborations have helped you identify your particular set of problems solution, and also I guess it resonates with your growth as well in some terms. So, what's your current, like apart from the educational collaborations or partnerships, of course, what's your current strategy around that? How do you expand your reach and your like? How do you enhance your product offerings particularly?
So what we're thinking of doing is that we're thinking of creating this what we call it, like this entity. So when we come, like you spoke about those educational partnerships, right? That's a B2B approach. But when it comes to D2C, the way we're thinking about doing this is to make this a Sunday fun day thing. So we're trying to coin this new experience, saying that it doesn't have to be every Sunday, but even if a Sunday in a month is where the kid and the parent get an excuse to spend some time together through make and break. So make and break just becomes an activity for bonding time, and more than that, what happens is that uh, I mean the kid gets to inherently absorb so many concepts and skills, and the parent feels so validated, saying that okay, I know I am investing in my kid's future. If I'm spending some money, it's going in the right direction, and they see that in their kids experience. And also, like one major thing that we do is that when we're providing assembly manuals with that product, because it's a DIY product, there's a section that we create specifically for parents, wherein parents, parents might want to have conversations with their kids, but they might not always be so knowledgeable about it. No, like not everybody knows everything. Our kids feel like, okay, parents are Google; they will have answers to every question. But unfortunately, they are human. So we kind of allow those parents to have meaningful conversations with their kids, which engage them in learning further, maybe even learning together. The parents doesn't necessarily need to have answers all the time, but even if they can embark on that journey of learning together, the kid automatically will, this is a well researched thing that the kids will automatically learn more if they're learning alongside their parents.
I guess there's a biological impact on that as well. I really like that Sunday Funday approach. I guess even I don't know if you'd remember this. There was a event called Rahagiri Day that started taking place across cities. Yeah, and to me that was a really fun experience. That was one of the few times my parents would actually wake up in the morning around 6 and 7 because they would be tired throughout the week, waking me up for school and everything. But yeah, I really wish you the best for this. Looks like a fun idea. Uh, Talking about that, where are you currently available? Where can someone, if they want to look for your product, where can they find it? And what's your reach in terms of geography, outside of Ahmedabad and Gujarat, of course?
So we're available on our website. It's makeandbreak.com, of course. We're available on major marketplaces, including Amazon, Flipkart, Meesho, etc. More than that, we're available on toy-specific marketplaces. Like there's Jojani, there's Snowplay, there's Nola, there's others as well. So we're essentially, of course, and then we're in the process of onboarding on many others. But the idea is to be available at every possible place where kids or parents are shopping for something creative, something unique. And so, yeah. But yes, in terms of a strategic move, what we are purposefully doing is that we are creating an online presence first. We are focusing on doing that first. We get offline offers of saying that you can present in this store, that store, etc. But our focus currently is to be available online everywhere, to have that brand, essentially to build that brand online, and then step into the offline game, because that we have realized with experience that offline is a much bigger game. So we call it's general trade, if you may. So that is a bigger ball game. And also, more than bigger ball game, what we've seen in the toy industry specifically is that whatever becomes a brand online is easier to set offline. And the major toy shopping habit is still online, especially after COVID. That has become so the parents are a lot of times I've seen parents tell us that kids will surf on their own, they will choose their own toys, they will just put in the cart. All we have to do is do the payment. That's the only thing that they come to us for. So, and because parents don't have the time to, kind of go to the shop along with them, spend that hour first driving, then choosing the toy there, and then coming back. So that becomes a 3 hour activity. Instead of that, they, would rather choose something online, get it delivered, and then spend time doing that Sunday fun day making. And that becomes an experience in itself.
So that's kind of true as well because psychologically speaking, I guess kids are more they perceive lights, colors, and something that pops out from a display window more. And I guess, like you rightfully said, that gives you time to expand on your design. And plus, of course, once you have your online presence made, that will actually be kind of easy to move into general trade. So, apart from this, what are your other long-term goals and aspirations?
I mean, I think we have one goal. We have had that since day one, which is to reach every kid in the nation, irrespective of their economic status. So that has been the driving force, and more. So that has been like, that's a quantifiable way of saying it. If you talk about the qualitative version of it, that translates into enhancing the Indian kids capacity to a think, b imagine, and c visualize. So these are the three capacities that we are actively working on every time we are designing a toy or we are creating that experience. So we are working on these three capacities, which are thinking, imagination, and visualization.
Apart from this, there's another competitor that you have, that runs parallel, I guess, towards your long-term goal, uh, technology itself, right? So how does Make and Break envision, like leveraging emerging technologies such as VR or even augmented reality to enhance its educational offerings that you're doing right now and further engage with your target audience?
But although it's a little hush hush because we're in the process of integrating AR and VR, so we wouldn't want that to leak out to our competitors. But the idea is, of course, to work along with technology, along with emerging technologies. It is never to leave them behind or to just stand out saying that, okay, no, we will not include technology. We are never about that. Yes, we have taken a stand of saying that we need to work on our fundamentals first, and then graduate slowly and steadily to bigger things, or to rather saying to more technologically advanced things.
Fair enough. So, as you see, like there has been a trend which India has been tackling in terms of both technology and other industries as well. Like something happens in West, then it reaches us, and by the time it reaches us, some of our products are too late to hit the market, apart from our own. So, did you actually have, or have you rather already started planning on any kind of international expansion, or like just establishing a global presence, like whether it be online or offline? And also, like the second part of my question would be like, do you have any key markets or region of focus within that?
Right. So, I mean, we're already catering to, pan India. So that's already happening. But when it comes to the global setup, yes, the globally people are much more aware of this DIY kind of landscape, DIY STEM landscape more than that, compared to India. We are India focused first. We're saying that. We want to first cater to our own nation wherein we have identified the problem in the first place. But yes, fortunately we've already started receiving orders from out of India as well. We have a couple of things in the pipeline from US and also from Africa.
Oh, that's actually amazing. That kind of aligns with us well, because Africa is also moving really fast in implementing the STEM, like academics within the educational system. And as far as I've heard, they kind of take inspiration from South Asian territories, especially India and China, for their academics. So I really hope that plays well for you. And based on that, another question that I would have is, how does Make and Break plan to stay at the forefront of innovation, right? You will have new competitors. I really hope this episode hits and there are people who aspire, what, we also want to do something like that. So how do you plan to stay ahead of them?
I mean, I think staying ahead of them right now, we only have one goal in terms of staying ahead of them. I think we're going to pick up some funds and accelerate our growth so that, our competitors can be left far behind.
Like one of the questions that I had, like since when you started, do you plan to even expand your target audience? You told me your target audience ranges between ages 4 to 14, right? So do you have any other plans in mind? Because, yeah, okay, can you please elaborate on that?
Sure. So, I mean, on our boxes, we're already writing 4 to 99, or so, we're already saying that, people up to 99 years of age can use our products. But yes, of course, a targeted focus is to start with kids, but we've already spoken with a lot of different corporates who are looking at, having maker events for their employees as, a stress relieving space as well, or as art therapy, or as making therapy. So there are a lot of different things which are, kind of going on, and they're in the pipeline. um, but yes, that opportunity is interesting. It wasn't something that we had initially thought about when we started, but when it presented itself, it became quite an interesting idea, also because even when we did start, so what was happening is that we were looking at engineering kids. Like, we also work with engineering kids. So even they lacked that curiosity, and even when they created those things, they enjoyed it. So these are people who are 20 somethings, maybe, right? People who are also doing their masters, so even they enjoyed the product. So we did have something in mind, how can we probably cater to them. So when an opportunity presented itself in the form of corporate events, etc., so it became very interesting for us to do that. So at the end of the day, what happens is, I think the bottom line is every maker is our customer. So irrespective of the age group, that's just it. That every maker is our customer.
My last question to you is, of course, like, what do you have planned for the future? Like, what's next? What should we be like at Newschain be looking out as your next moves at Make and Break?
I think the immediate future, I think that we're also working on already, is to accelerate our growth multifold. I mean, we've validated our products, we've validated ourselves in the market, etc. But the idea is to become a big enough player to create the impact that we want to create. So A is that, and B, I think another form of impact that we see is um, that gap between STEM jobs and STEM skills. That STEM graduates and STEM jobs. So, like, we hear a lot of these times that we have so many unemployed engineers in the nation. So on paper, they are engineers, they've gotten the degree, but they're not getting the job. So that gap that is there, we're looking at bridging that in the future. And yeah, I think that's where we're heading towards.
Can you just make a clarification? Is that an answer based on your MBA skills of giving a diplomatic answer, or I don't know? Like, are there something more that we can expect or hope for?
No, I think that those are the things that we think about day in and day out. So this is not about diplomacy, but this is more about the fact that we are very mission driven. People might call us naive, uh, but this is just the way that we are. We're not saying that money is not important. We're not saying that we don't recognize the business side of things, but that is a byproduct which will happen if we do the right things in the right way, is what we believe.
Perfect. I'm so glad to hear that, and I'm pretty sure our viewers, our readers, will also appreciate these sentiments coming from a startup, a new age startup like yours. And with that, I'd like to thank you for being a part of this episode, and I really hope that you accelerate further with this amazing product that you are developing.
Thank you, Akshat, for hosting us, for hosting Make and Break, and thanks to your team as well. They have practically burning the midnight oil right now, but thanks to all of you, right?
Okay, thank you so much, Mansi. I hope you guys get into your accelerator or a funding, a huge one, and we can expect you for our next season as well. Both of you this time, and not Neeraj behind the scenes.
Yeah.
Thank you and good night. And again, thank you for being a part of this episode of the Newshin podcast.
Thanks. All right, good night.
And with that, we have come to the end of our episode. We'll be back with more delightful anecdotes, crisp insights, and invaluable advice. So thank you for tuning in. We release our episodes on all podcast friendly platforms on Wednesdays and Saturdays. I look forward to catching up with you guys at the next one. So, alright, this is where we phone it in, metaphorically speaking, of course. Don't forget to subscribe to us for more updates and tidbits about our episodes. You can catch more content around the episodes, such as behind the scenes and bloopers, by following us in the links placed somewhere around here. So, ciao.